welcome back to the Blueprints of Success interview series, providing unique blueprints, tactical knowledge, best practices to navigate the critical points in the football ecosystem so athletes and parents can prepare a plan for a career path that any athlete can bank on. So this is a special episode. There's only one player each year that gets crowned as the number one player in the country, which is like the highest ranked recruit since they've been keeping track since probably 2000. So only like 22 guys have ever been held this title. So this is my man, highest ranked recruit to ever attend Penn State University, held Penn State, catapulted back to the limelight after some dark years in the early 2000s. Went on to get drafted in the third round with the Detroit Lions and spent some time with the Steelers following NFL career, transitioned into extremely successful orthopedic medical sales professional, now living in Houston, Texas. Let's welcome Derrick Williams.
Yeah. Easton. My man Jay King out here.
Yeah,
doing
man.
The thing. You giving these people some pointers, bro. Like, you giving it to them, giving them some knowledge right now.
Man, man.
I'm proud of you.
Man, thank you, bro. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I done seen DZ on here. I done seen E. You know, I seen you put some people on here, bro.
Man, the crew got to keep it going, man. Kind of use the sports thing to catapult, understand the different, pitfalls that sometimes come up and how to, pivot and maximize this whole process.
Yeah,
So you've had a very unique perspective in this whole recruiting game. We just talk about recruiting, right? Like recruiting, going to the NFL, just starting from in high school, being the number one player in the country, having all eyes on you, coming from a talent-rich area, the DMV, going to the NFL, transitioning out. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone looking to play high school football and make an instant impact in college football?
I mean, the piece of advice is I will always say keep your circle tight. The people around you, make sure that, like, hey, you got some people that'll tell you the truth at all times. You know what I mean? And then also, you got to compete, bro. Like, you got to be a competitor. You got to be able to. You got to want to win. It's a difference in being in the team and being an athlete that wants to win. To be like, hey, I'm the guy. You know what I mean? Sometimes it might sound selfish. Sometimes it might be just different. Like, I've been on teams where it was a receiver that'll score, and I'd be like, damn, that was cool, but the ball should have came to me. You know what I mean? 'Cause I want to be that guy. I want to be, I want to be that one. You got to be able to hold that weight. Just playing with like Calvin and all them other guys, like, it was always a saying to whom much is given, much is required. So, hey, if it was CJ being Megatron, like, hey, when we throw that ball, like, it's going to you, and you want to always be that guy there.
That's big, having that just like that. It's on me, man. Put the pressure on me. Like, I want to make the play. It's all, and like kind of taking the responsibility, like you said, where there's a team aspect, but it's like, man, I want to make a play, and having that. Yeah. Nick Saban said it one time where he likes to coach guys as an individual, because it's like you coach as a whole team, you're kind of minimizing your special things. But like you talk about the mentality where it's like, no, I need to maximize my special stuff and know what I bring to the team. I'm all for the team, but like I can provide something to help the team get to a certain type of stance or whatever the case may be.
It's a fine balance that you got to have with that. You know what I mean? You want to be a team guy, but you want to know that, look, hey, when things go on array, like, hey, who's going to make the play. Always used to, like, me and Varro, we competed all the time in high school, and they used to, they were beating up on us one time, and I looked at Varro, and I was like, oh, it's D.Will time, bro. It's D.Will time, bro.
And just the clarification, when he say Varro, he's talking about Navarro Bowman, all-pro NFL linebacker for the 49ers. But yeah. Continue.
So, but it was a time when it was just like, hey, when the back is against the wall, you want to be that one that step up, and you got to have that attitude to be successful in anything. Like you got to have that attitude.
I mean, you touched on it, coming from the DMV as the number one recruit in the country, like a talent-rich area, right? You're talking about growing up, you're competing against Navarro Bowman and other guys, KD, all the different athletes coming around in that area, and you're touted as the guy. You know what I mean? So let's talk about the recruiting process. How was your recruiting process coming from the DMV and being the top ranked dude?
All right. First off, let's not throw this thing down with JK on the other side. Both of us were the top guys. So he knows. Everybody he knows. You know what I mean? But just coming from there, bro, you got to understand that's when rivals and all that stuff was like getting big and hot. So we were on the scene. I remember like 2004, 2003, like I was on a magazine and LeBron was on the back of the magazine. I was like, what? I looked back, I was like, LeBron on the back.
Right.
But bro, like it was a time, like it was the time of, you know, I was lucky to have a brother that went to it before, but it was like, hey, I wanted to go somewhere where I can go and make an immediate impact. And to be honest, what I was just saying about being a guy, I was looking around at different schools and I was like, well, I know USC got Reggie Bush. I know Oklahoma had AP. And I was like, I probably won't be the guy there when I come there. So I wanted to make an immediate impact and, you know, make my own legacy somewhere.
Absolutely. That's strong. So like you talked about, you had a brother that went through the process before you. We always kind of see guys that, I mean, it's uncharted waters when you're going through the recruiting process, and a lot of people learn as they go. So having that, like having your brother there before, like when did you realize that the process was starting to get serious?
My process probably started in about sixth grade, bro. And then you got to think both of us finished school. Like I tell people, like we might have been like the first class that kind of like finished school early. And for me, I had to take English class. I had to get ahead of the grade that I was in. So in the eighth grade, I had to start taking high school courses so I can graduate early. So that process and that plan was planned out all the way in the eighth grade. You know what I mean? So we kind of had like a vision of like, look, if we're going to be special, we want to leave early. We want to be one of these guys. Like, we need to start this process early. And it was it was unseen territories because we were kind of like the first dudes to do that coming up. So, you know, we kind of laid that blueprint out for all these guys finishing in December. So, you know, we really had to like do some work, had to work with the school boards. I remember my dad going up there, was like, what are you talking about? He was like, bro, he's finishing in December. Like, this is on the blueprint. This is what's happening.
So you would say you put your blueprint to kind of your prep high school career and like that trajectory. Was it, you say seventh, eighth grade?
Seventh, eighth grade. My first scholarship was to Penn State. I think it was seventh grade. You know what I mean? First, like offer, not like scholarship.
I know what you mean.
Everybody want to talk about, I got a scholarship, and then you got to offer until that paper come in.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's real. That's real because sometimes these guys get messed up. Like now, definitely like an offer is just to recruit you, just to let you know, hey, we're kind of interested in the whole thing.
But we laid that down about in seventh grade. You got to think if you do it the correct way, your junior year, going into your senior year, you shouldn't have to do camps. You're already out there. Right. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if you did any camps your junior going into senior year, but I didn't. Like we were already out there. It was almost just like, hey, show my face riding the golf cart with the coach type thing.
Absolutely. What made you think early that early in your career? Where did the idea come to enroll early, like just setting up the academics to be able to enroll in January? Because I remember when we put together our blueprint, it was like, I think it was like the first player that did it was John David Booty, and he was down in Louisiana. He went to USC. He might have been a year before us. It was like the first one that I kind of heard of it. It was like, yeah, let's kind of do that. And just wondering, like, where did you think of getting that? And I was early too, like probably ninth grade when I started making that decision.
Well, it was our circle. Again, a major reason for me going to Penn State was J.B. Gerald. I call him my cousin. He was a GA there, and he was part of my family circle, and he was probably the 95% of the reason why I went to Penn State. But we all had the idea of the earlier you can get in, get a spring ball underneath you, you know what I mean, the better you'll be off going into the fall. Because once you get spring ball, that's when like the coaches are starting to figure out like, hey, this is what our team is going to look like. If you sometimes wait until the fall, they already have their blueprint, as we would say, to what is going to go on for the season. So we wanted to get a head start, and we had that idea from the eighth grade, from looking at my brothers, college experience, from having our circle all talk. Like, it's just like, hey, this is to be the best thing for Derrick.
It's so crazy that you talk about like being the first group of guys that kind of went through that process, because now it's almost a standard. If we, some of the staffs judge if the player is serious or not if they come. Now you got schools that might have 15 to 16 guys coming in January because like the idea is like, all right, I need to graduate in 3 years, I need to go to the NFL, and we're talking 20-something years ago where this was kind of laid out, and it's just it's not for everybody, right? Because like you have to be.
It's a lot of stuff that I regret, to be totally honest. And
Talk about that. What do you regret about the early decision?
You know what? Coming in as big recruits like we were given a lot of stuff, right? And it didn't really like lay down the foundation of we had to work for something. Now, you can take that as a good thing. You can take that as a bad thing. Me and you, we didn't stay in dorms. You know what I mean? To be honest, you cultivate a lot of relationships in the dorm rooms. And we didn't have that opportunity really because, everybody thought that we were the big guys on the campus. So we stayed in apartments. It sounds good when you're going into it when you're 18 years old, like, oh man, I ain't even staying on the dorms. I'm going straight to apartments. But after looking back at it, and we're in our 30s now, and then we look at some of our friends, we're like, nah, we don't know them. Oh, you ain't meet them at the dorms and stuff like that? Yeah, I mean, it's an experience that we missed.
That's true. That is true. There are definitely experiences that you miss. And I never really thought about it to that extent because I always talk about the different things and the things that I think I sacrificed. Like, I think about that second half of high school and different things and kind of overweigh the benefits that we got, right? Like jumping a head start and all those things. But the dorm thing is definitely something that picked up our freshman year. It's like everybody kind of knew everybody else and we were kind of separated to an extent. So that's a very intriguing way to look. I mean, not even look at it, but your experience. Did you play multiple? Go ahead.
I look at it now though, Justin, because I'm on the other side of football. I'm in medical sales, and I look at it as what relationships could I have connected to in the dorms that helped me out in my 30s to try to put together like my new like plan of life. You know what I mean? It's some guys in there that were in them dorms that's millionaires, that's multi-millionaires that take you way past football. And if I would have had that time, maybe in those dorms, I would have, had a relationship with somebody that could have helped me out later. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Just being able to, like you said, just kind of forcing you to drop yourself into the student body when you're in the dorms and that experience. Yep. It's funny that you said we had another guest that kind of mentioned the same experience at another, prominent school where there were other people that kind of were multimillionaires on their dorm floor. Were you a multi-sport athlete coming out of high school?
Oh, yeah.
What sports did you play?
You got to shoot at the gun, bro. You got to run that track. We tried to do that at Penn State for a little bit. Right. Coach Johnson over there pulled so many hamstrings, bro.
Got him.
You got to do it. I did track and football. I thought I was a basketball player for the longest, but that ain't work out for me. I was I might have tried out in 10th grade for varsity, and I made the 7th grade team.
But at least you're in a DMV where y'all put out NBA boys every year, so you probably were playing with some real talent.
Oh yeah, but mine was track. I did indoor, outdoor track, and then played football. I always say you got to put that sport, like you almost got to put your sport down for a little bit, refresh, learn some more movements. Track ties in with everything because you're picking up, you have that speed, you have that explosiveness, you work on that quick twitch. And my track coach knew what I wanted to do, and they was like, hey, you might be good enough to even run track in college too. But just trying to, again, have that blueprint down, like, hey, after the season, we're going to take this time off. We're going to rest your body, get your mind thinking about something else so you can be refreshed, when spring starts coming around and y'all start doing 7-on-7s and things like that.
That's so critical, man. That's a very key point. And you talked about it a little bit, just it seemed like the blueprint and things being in order. And I witnessed it going through the process with you, like you having your whole situation, had moved with a team at an early age. How informed did you feel going through the process?
I was lucky, and I think both of us was lucky because, our dads were kind of like in the mix. My dad was, AD at the University of Maryland, so I was kind of like, I had some knowledge of it. Then I seen my brother going through it too. so I was kind of informed there. People, I don't know if you looked at that King Richard movie, but I remember like, Nick Saban, and I remember Pete Carroll coming in, and they're coming and visiting with your families, and they want to tell you everything. These recruiters, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell your family what you want to hear. My dad would just do something wild, like, bro, he's like, look here, I don't really want to hear that. Like, let's cut to the chase now. And, that's weird for like, everybody's in Gaga land, like, oh, Joe Paterno came to my house, Pete Carroll came to my house. My dad like, look here, bro, you gonna sit down, we gonna talk, and we gonna get everything down on paper. We gonna figure this out. So like, he had the vision of like, look, all the glitz and gliders are good, but we got to figure out like what is it that we're going to do to propel my son to his dream to the NFL.
Man, that's so powerful because like you just having that family asset when you're going through this process with a support group that's kind of helping you focus on what you need to focus on and them kind of protecting and letting you make your decisions. So with that being said, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but what did you base your decision on?
You want to know something? I based it on me making an immediate impact. Right. And then I based it on, to be honest, JB being there, to feel comfortable with a coaching staff or with a coach that is inside of those meetings that you're not inside of. And you can hear some of the stuff that's going on in there. That was very, pivotal for me as far as like, I knew like, hey, this is what they plan on. This is the game plan. And then, me and I went in with like, hey, I'm going to the league. So having JB there, I mean, we would go out, and you know this too, we'll go out at night and go into Haluba at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. We'll wake up, be early in Haluba. And he kind of just like made me stay on track as far as my dream. Now, there are some other things that like I wish I would have considered a little bit more. And it still would have been a immediate impact. But I think sometimes as far as like me and you, as far as being those top guys, right, you're given a lot of stuff, especially in football. So when we walked in, we were kind of like starters, right?
Right.
And in our groups, to be honest, we really didn't compete that much, right? So I always will look at now, even when my son goes to it, is how much are you going to compete in your group? Like, if me and you drop the ball in practice sometimes, I mean, it'll be, oh, they dropped the ball, get back out there, make the next catch. That don't work in the NFL, bro. Like, if you ain't a first round or anything like that, you drop the ball, they gonna be like, all right, keep dropping it if you want, you out. You know what I mean? So if you're going through 3-4 years of really not competing within your group, you want to look in that group and be like, bro, I'm competing in this group every day. Like, I got to keep my job. 5 heartbeats. Every night I got to fight for my love. Like, you got to keep your job, bro. And I don't think, we had great receivers, had great DBs, but I don't think looking back at it, we really had to compete every day within our group.
I know exactly what you're saying. You talk about that. We talk about with our checklist where we talk about position group success and like what school you go to, having a history of position group success, knowing that there's going to be guys there to sharpen your iron. And there's like a standard of where you're playing, whether you're competing every day. And that is a true point, right? When we talk about going to Penn State at a rebuilding time and kind of being those spark plugs. But even thinking like 2 years after we left, like that culture, kind of what you're talking about, probably started to develop.
Now, I think right now they do a great job of it. If you look at the receiver groups that are coming out right now at Penn State, every last one of them, every year you got a top guy with Hamilton, with all those guys. You got them dudes doing their job in the NFL. But that's because they're starting a process of they competing every day. Every year you're getting one of them coming out.
That's so big that you're saying that because it's like you're going to school and it's like, man, he's saying I wish I would have competed more. Just not even for the fact of like success in college, which Derrick did have. And it's like to prepare him even more for when he got to the NFL. So just even thinking of playing up, like, and hearing Derrick's perspective of going into the process with a plan, getting into college and understanding where he wanted to go. And like, even looking back, I think it's really powerful to say that and be honest and say, wish you having more competition going in and kind of continue to iron sharpen iron from the beginning within your group. You know what I mean?
And we had a hell of a group. We had Butts and we had
That's
Norwood. You know what I mean? But to be honest, sometimes when I dropped the ball, Derrick Moy should have came in. James should have came in. Like it's guys in there. We had most talented kid that we've had was
Chris Bell.
Chris Bell. We had Chris Bell in that thing,
Chris
bro.
Bell.
Yeah, bro. Like, hey, when things happen, the coaches got to hold you accountable because in life, that's what you're going to be accountable for. No matter what, like no matter what job you got, no matter whatever it is, I'm managing. And if somebody can't come in and bring the numbers in that I want, like, bro, I got to find somebody else. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's just life.
That's life, and that's critical, man. So looking back, that impact, right, and understanding that the position group success and having that iron sharpens iron aspect when you're in your position room. That's so critical, and I think that's 100% right. When you made the decision, were you thinking about a post-football career during the process?
Nah, not at all. Only thing I was thinking about wearing that gold jacket and being a millionaire.
Gold jacket and millionaire.
Okay. Yeah, I ain't know nothing about nothing else. That was all it. And that was my fault. You know what I mean? And, you know, I don't ever think that you should go in a situation with a plan B or plan C, but you need to grow and need to be able to connect. And I think that I was so focused that my growth as a human didn't really connect with it. I was so focused on everything didn't matter besides the NFL. Well, shit, even if I made millions and even if I was in a gold jacket, those relationships that I could have cultivated, those people that I might have just thought that like, hey, you know, they're not going to help me get to the NFL. Like later on, we could have connected later, and whatever they got going on or anything, like everything kind of works in full circle, bro. And you can't skip processes at all. You can't skip people because people make this world go round.
Taking advantage and maximizing this whole process. When we talk about not having a fallback plan, I agree with you. I always tell guys like it's not a fallback plan. You need to have an acceleration plan. Like so, what you're saying is like going through and knowing that like, all right, I need to make sure I'm filling up these buckets as I'm going towards my goal, and if not, like I can surpass it and get to that next point. That's huge, man. That's huge to even say. So after all that, what was the best part of the recruiting process for you?
Visits were great, man. I always tell everybody, take all your visits. You only get one shot at this. Understand that, you know, you can go to different areas, you can see different people, you know, you can meet. You think about it like when I went to Texas, Vince Young and all those guys was there, and those are Heisman Trophy guys. So you kind of like can see and meet these guys and see different coaching staffs and everything like that. So my visits was great. You know, so I would say that part of it was probably the best. Okay. Just going around and seeing different stadiums and stuff like that. That's kind of what got me.
Yeah, getting engulfed into that elite college football stuff is pretty. Yeah. It's pretty infatuating. It's an amazing experience. What was the worst part?
After it all, I wish I was ranked number 2 in the nation rather than number 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we go into that a little bit? Why you say that?
I was younger, and you know, mental health and all that stuff like that is a big thing, right? And I believe in it. But as far as being number 2, you always got something to work at. Number 1 is always looking behind, trying to figure out if they're going to find out about me, if somebody's going to get me. So I was always looking at like, hey, is somebody going to get me? And my mental at that point in time wasn't strong enough. And I wish I had something to shoot for because I felt like everybody was shooting for me for having that number 1 tag.
Man, so we're going to jump into it now. I talk about in the next section, we're going to talk about transitioning to Penn State. And it's interesting even hearing you say that because I always say that you're one of the hardest working players that I've ever seen, right? Like almost like to the point like you weren't the number 1 player in the country. Yeah. Like to that standpoint of like working like a walk-on would work. And that's an interesting way of even looking at it, even hearing your perspective of kind of where it was coming from. So before we jump into your time at Penn State as a player, to leave the recruiting process buttoned up, will be one key takeaway that you would share with anyone to better equip themselves to go through the recruiting process?
One key is do what's best for you. You got a lot of these schools out there that, have the huge names and all that stuff like that. And to be honest, when we went to school, Penn State was on a low haul. But do what's best for you and where you can make an impact, not only on the football field, but just in the community, because all that stuff comes full circle. Go somewhere that when you connect to their coaching staffs and everything like that, they'll develop you into a great man, and take those steps there. I think we had some, great coaches with, Coach Jay, Coach Norwood, and then if you really think about, just the guys that we had there with like Mike Robb and AZ, they kind of made us kind of like fall in line and make sure that we compete and show our work ethic and everything, and that's what kind of propelled us for having a great career. So I think that those are important there.
That's so important, man. You hit on some very powerful points. So now we just transition into Penn State, right? You talked about you wish you would have came out at number 2 just to have that thing that you're going for, but you're coming in with high expectations. You're number 1 guy, like you said. Penn State's on a downswing, so it's like coming in a level of both of us, right? Where it's like a level of saviors that's coming to town. How was the transition for you into Penn State? You come in January, it's snowing.
You remember my first night? I was like, bro, let's wake up at 5:30 and get to the weight room. We did that joint one night. Like, bro, we did that joint one night. I was like, yeah. But I was like, bro, I wonder if JK remember, dog. We did that one night. Like, bro, we gonna go into it's 6 o'clock in the morning. We go in the first group. We learned real quick after that. We learned real quick after that, yeah.
In the snow and everything.
In the snow and everything, yeah.
Man. So how was it for you, man? How was the transition there?
I think the transition, and I would just speak for me, but I think it's for both of us. We knew we were fast. So I've always found that, like, the one thing that I'm going to show up on is all running stuff. Like, hey, I'm going to be the first one. So if everybody look at me, if something comes in, we'll be like, hey, at least he fast, right? So the transition was, I tried to find that one thing that I was good at and build off of that. And then the transition as far as picking up the plays and all that stuff like that, that was pretty easy because it's all relatable after a while. And then I took the time to try to learn and try to be a part of the team, but always wanted to have that one thing that I was good at, and that was, when we did gases and everything like that, I looked around, I knew me and JK were going to be first, so y'all can say what y'all want, but we're going to be first going running these joints. We might be weak in the weight room, we might can't lift on our legs, but bro, we going to be first in this joint coming up right now.
That was my next question, man, was the weight room. How was that transition into the weight room? Because I talk about that as like, that's just an important piece of college. We just talk about development, dealing with the weight room staff, and it being a critical point, because when I look back and just what aspects of the university to evaluate, like you said, you wish you would have looked at some aspects of the competition within your position group, and sometimes I look at the weight room. How was the weight room transition for you?
To be honest, I didn't know too much about the weight room, bro. And I wish I would have educated myself more on how I wanted my body, how I wanted to be explosive, how I can develop all that stuff, right? Now these kids are starting a lot earlier, and they might can do a little bit more than what we did. We knew we were fast, but we didn't know, hey, look, Olympic lifting might be better than, our machine lifting. You think about a guy like Saquon and how he was doing all the Olympic lifting, and all those guys at Penn State right now, that's, if you really look at it, that's why they're number 1 all the time at the combines, bro. Like,
explosion.
You can look at all that stuff and be like, once that combine stuff come around, all that credit goes to them weight room guys, because you taking these kids that might be fast like us, one, keeping them there or getting them faster and stronger. I think we had a great staff with Jeremy and JT. They took us a whole, but I wish I would have been educated a little bit more about how I wanted my body to look, how explosive I wanted to be, because it might have been some different things that I would have considered about like the weight room and stuff like that. Either if they wasn't doing it there, I could have did it on my own, or maybe it even made a difference in the decision on where you're going to school.
I think that's a big point, right? Like and that's very honest from you, because when you talk about where it's going to school, like you talk about the relationships that you build in the weight room and how you want your body, like if you're getting faster, stronger, bigger, how chiseled you're going to be, and all those different things. And then you see like the relationship in different places, right? You had the situation that happened in Maryland when you have a guy die. You have an Iowa situation where racism and bullying come up in different places. Not that we went through anything like that, but those are the different things in that kind of space that takes up so much of your college time that, I mean, it's very important.
Well, coaches that you're going to spend all your time with, bro. The most time you're going to spend with is those guys that's in the weight room.
Boom. When was that moment when we got to Penn State where you thought, man, this is serious business? It seems like you already knew going through, like you had a plan and knew where you were trying to get to the Hall of Fame. But like when you got to Penn State, you're like, man, this is real.
I think our first spring game when we came out to the stadium and I had that crowd there. Growing up in D.C., the PG County area, like football is good, but our stadium might have hold like 600 people, 700 people at max, and that's a good game. That's packed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So then walking out there to a spring game with like 80,000, and at that time with that freshman class that we had, like we were it. We were the thing to be. So we was like rock stars, and I was like, damn, this is what it is right there. That's what it is.
I do remember that first spring game. That was a little surreal because it was like the hoopla of us being there in the spring and coming out, and like there was like 80,000 people and we're like at practice, like
at practice, yeah.
Like it was a little rain or whatever the case may be. So it was clear that we were going to make an impact in spring ball, but just based on like coming out to practice, like the first day you made. I ain't gonna put the safety on blast.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, he made Chris around fall, like pop, like, you know what I mean, breaking up a couple passes or whatever they like, throughout practice. So it was like kind of made splash as soon as we got there. So it was like, all right, we knew going back to the our apartment that we were going to make some impacts during the season. How did you feel about the game speed, like in college when we got there?
I always thought that a lot of times the game speed relies on the D-line, when I'm on offense, D-line and linebackers, right? When you're in high school, you see the Browns reverse field, do all that other stuff. You know what I mean? You can do all that stuff with them because they rooty boots, they slow, but you got these dudes running 4.3s, bro. like you reverse if you want, you're gonna get hawked. But the game speed picked up a lot. You know what I mean? I always tell people, especially as a receiver. The separation as far as like when you're doing one-on-ones, when you're running your routes, in high school, you're very open. So, when I'm training these high school guys, when I'm, watching practices and I'm talking to some of these receiver groups, I'm like, high school, you're very open. In college, bro, them being right behind you a little bit, you know what I mean? You're open. You got a little bit more space. In the NFL, that is open, like it's like that, you know what I mean? So that space always comes down, and you're dealing with different talent, different people that can keep up with your speed. So you got to really hone down on your technique. So that was a difference as well, just to see the space you create when when you're open.
That's very critical, especially because short area quickness and all that good things for receivers are critical factors to having success. So we talk about like spring ball, making plays, and you went into the season making plays, right? Ohio State, obviously Northwestern, a big catch, and it was like an immediate impact. How much of the spring ball acclimation period did you kind of attribute to your instant success when you hit the field as a freshman?
I think it was big time. I think it was everything, because. Again, with both of us, we can have speed, but if you don't know what you're doing, speed ain't nothing, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? If you can play with confidence and you understand where you're supposed to be, you understand the system, that's when you can see a 4.3 guy. Because a 4.3 guy can look like a 4.7 guy if he don't know what he's doing. You know what I mean? Everybody looking like, man, I didn't know he was that fast when he runs, but that's because he doesn't have the knowledge, or he doesn't understand what he's doing out there. So
Thinking
he's
slow.
playing confused. So us doing that spring ball, what it did was it eliminated the confusion there. So it was more of like, hey, if I know that I got a too high safety and I'm the slot guy, I'm gonna take the middle. Now I can do that full speed and I see it because I've been seeing it in practice. And I didn't just see it these 12 practices before the season. I've seen it for 24 times now because I did spring ball. And I can understand and I can recognize it. And my quarterback now knows that, hey, I can trust this guy because we've been through this. So I think it gave our our offense more confidence, but it also gave me a ability to be faster and play with confidence, play knowing what I'm doing.
Game speed, gameplay speed coming from understanding the football that you're actually playing. So, like, guys, get in your playbook so you can play fast. You know what I mean? That's why people bring up guys 40-yard dash when they're slower. But, like, man, if they got high football IQ, football is about anticipation, angles, and numbers and all that good stuff. Yeah. So you hop into the season, you're killing, you're making plays, you're doing guys like A.J. Hawk against Ohio State, scoring touchdowns. Now we get to Michigan, and you deal with a season-ending injury in 05.
And I was balling that game. Bro, I was balling.
So there we go. So, like, after a scorching start in 05, man, you get injured. But, like, can you take me through that process? Because, I mean, most guys in sports haven't gotten any serious injuries to that point. We talk about that.
Man, first off, just going through it, again, like, mental health is huge, right? And I definitely look into it. I definitely believe in it. When you've been on the mountain high for so long and never got really injured or anything like that, and then you go through that and, you know, you feel like somebody's sitting you down, like, that's something that you got to deal with. Like, you got to understand, like, bro, like, it was days that I didn't feel like going to class because I was like, shit, I mean, why this happened to me? So I went through a lot of depression at that time as far as, like, I'm not playing, you know, being that number one guy, like, are people catching me? So I'm like, you know, I felt a whole bunch of pressure on me. So, you know, just having that circle, having JB around, having a coaching staff with like Coach Jay and Coach Norwood and, you know, some of the guys on the offense and stuff like that, you know, that's what kind of kept me still going and kept me looking towards getting back the next season. I remember even crying in the Orange Bowl game because, bro, I was practicing a little bit out there, and I told Joe, like, I can go. But, you know, we kind of had a coaching staff, and Joe did a great job of, like, you know, taking care of his guys where he was just like, hey, man, you got a lot more football left in your life. Like, this is just one game. So I'm not going to play you this game. So, you know, but I was on the sideline hot.
He was definitely big on injury prevention, but like that's key on what you're saying, like going through that. Cause like you were balling, just to give context, like he's coming in as the number one recruit. He's living up to the hype. He's playing at a high level, scoring touchdowns. And then all of a sudden the season's ended after we kind of flipped Penn State around, and we continue to still have some success. We end up losing that Michigan game, which is a hurt piece because we end up going 11-1. Some of that was probably my fault, but that's another story for another day. But how, like you talked about a little bit, like it was tough when you got to the Florida State game. How was it when we were still winning for you?
You know, it was two things. I wish that I was out there with you guys, but then after a while, I was like, the team gets it, right? And you can see what the coaching staff were talking about when they were saying, hey, we're one or two players away. And when I say that they get it is if you got guys that come in, we didn't know about losing, me and you. When we went in, we didn't know. Our class didn't know about losing. Right. You know what I mean? Penn State, before we came in there, I think they were like 4-7 or 4-6 or something like that.
3-9, I think.
We kind of went in there and we was like, bro, we ain't a part of that. Like, y'all, like, we gonna work. We're going to work. We're going to show you. I know we're young, but we're going to try to do everything that we can do to you know, propel, like, hey, this is how our career is going to go. This is how it's going to, you know, the torch is going to be passed. And I, you know, I wanted to be out there, but I also saw the torch being passed where, we had successful seasons after that. And, that's kind of how I looked at it, but I definitely was hurt that I couldn't go out there because I thought that, that probably would have been my best season ever.
Right.
And no telling what things would have came after that.
Not the hard one, because I know just injuries are tough for guys to go through, and a lot of times you're going through it, and like you've been mentioning mental health a lot. And I know I dealt with a lot of injuries in the NFL and some at Penn State. What was one of the hardest things to deal with? Like, did you feel like people kind of started ignoring you after you got hurt? Did you feel like what was the main thing? Was like, I know I can't play, but what was like the hard thing about the day to day?
It almost makes you feel like you're useless, bro. Like, one thing that I learned when I was in the NFL, I never got into coaching, but I had a mentor as a great coach with Sean Jefferson and all those guys. So when I would get injured, he would kind of almost mentor me in like a coaching aspect as far as understanding the game, understanding coverages, understanding route schemes, route combinations, and stuff like that. Like understanding it, and he kind of like put my eyes on like, man, it would be really nice to be a coach because I started understanding the game more. And when you understand the game more and you have to sit down, when you get out there, man, that's even you're playing even faster. You know what I mean? So like, hey, if this outside linebacker buzzes over, I'm gonna hit him with an eye. Like you can start anticipating what things are doing. So again, the knowledge base of even when you're sitting down. If you can start if you start visualizing like, hey, I'm gonna get better at this of my game. I'm gonna start understanding coverages more. I'm gonna start understanding the whole scheme. I'm gonna start understanding what the linemen are doing to make me a hot receiver. You know what I mean? When I see 8 in the box, or if one comes off, I know that I got the slant because this lineman doesn't have nobody. So just starting to understand the game a little bit more, that was big for me.
Turn it into a true chess game, man. Like you said, that's when guys start playing at a hyper speed, and that's a critical point for younger players looking at the game, man. Like taking those X and O's serious, man. You mix that with some natural athletic ability and understanding how to set things up. Sky's the limit. So while we were at Penn State, was there a critical advantage you noticed or identified while we were there? Like we were like, man, I need to take advantage of this. You mentioned earlier some things about the dorms and things of that nature, but was that the only thing?
I think also making yourself. Sometimes I think it's sometimes where you have cliques that's in the team, and I think that we didn't do like a bad job of opening up, but I wish I would have opened up more to the whole entire team. Mm-hmm. Where, you have guys, again, you got CEOs in the locker room, bro. You got people that's the head of hedge funds in the locker room. And if you don't understand, like, the direction and keep in touch and stuff like that, like, this world is about who you know, and if you can make those connections right there, man, it can help you for the rest of your life.
Man, that's a gem worth $1 million right there, man. Like that's just taking advantage of this, the critical view that you have, whether it's other elite people, whether it's students, their actual teammates that do great things, especially when you go to, top tier universities like Penn State and other places in the country. So when we were at Penn State,
one other thing that I wish I would have did. See, I think that I wasn't really a true receiver, right? I was, and I think both of us might have been like that. We were a jack of all trades, right? Where you can put us at running back, you can put us at quarterback, you can put us at receiver. Penn State did a pretty good job at, utilizing us all over the place. And if you got a team, you gotta have them understand that vision. You gotta understand that vision. But it also hurts you too when you go to the next level and they might not have that vision for you, because now you're a jack of all trades but not a master at anything. You know what I mean? And that kind of might have hit me in my NFL career because, hey, I was probably a B plus as a running back. I was a B at receiver. I might have been a C or a B plus at quarterback. But when you going to be that A, bro? I need you to be that A right now. So just kind of still looking at that coaching staff and how they can develop you and develop your talents and understand your vision.
Man, that's honest and that's 100% correct, man. Just like understanding to like zero it in, right? I talk about me playing both sides as a freshman and only playing 2 years corner and then go to the NFL. But like when you get to the NFL, it's not really about being halfway good. You have to have an elite trait and you have to be like kind of zeroed in on something.
Yep.
Like there's a very minimal amount of time to develop something, right? So it gets point. You can get it, but to what Derrick's saying, a lot of times is in college that process that's the cooking process. You know what I mean? Yep. So just understanding what that is and actually being honest about we were there as a little bit of jack of all trades and where that kind of affect them at the next level. So making sure that those pieces fit when you're going to college and your dream is to go to play NFL, that's a stepping stone that you're ready for. What was the worst part?
Worst part? I don't know, man. We were so fortunate, bro. Like it's some stuff that I look back at and I'll be like, man, you know, maybe I wish I would have did this more. But worst, we had a good group of guys, man. We had a good group of guys. You know, I think that for me, the worst part is we're 2 seconds away both times from going to the national championship, my freshman year and our senior year. But as far as the process, as far as like my friend group, as far as the circle, as far as class and all that other stuff, you know what? I got one. My worst thing was, bro, when they asked me they asked me what major you want to major in, I said football, bro. I don't care what y'all say. Whatever it is that get me through, look, it's football. So I think honestly, I think I would have came in more of a plan of like what I want to do after football and try to figure that out. Again, I didn't have a plan B, so when they asked me, I was like, football. I don't know. That's exactly I don't know.
So just the easiest thing. Yeah, it's the worst part, not having that plan like as input and as tight as your plan was in football, not having that plan, I guess, off the field to be able to maximize everything that you felt like you could have maximized at Penn State, even though it still comes back around. But like actually diving in while going through it, I would agree 100% with that me as well, because just you get so bogged down with sports and like you said, you get that tunnel vision. You know, we talking about trying to get to a point where that top 1%, and then sometimes I try to you got at least hear it from me to you like. Sometimes just giving ourselves a little grace, right? When you're like focused on that and you are getting into that top 1%, there is a little bit of things that do fall aside. But like at the same time, moving forward with these next guys coming up, just kind of break those blocks down and can keep that singular focus, but still have your eyes on that next prize. Man, that's just some powerful stuff. So when we talk about a key takeaway for a guy that's a 5-star recruit and he's trying to get into college, he wants to make that impact as a freshman. Because like when I was recruiting, everybody's talking about, man, I want to come in and I want to play right now. What was that thing what would you share to that 5-star that's coming up that wants to play?
5-star, do we got NIL? He got NIL, dude?
He got NIL too. Yeah, NIL.
Ooh, Lord, Jesus Christ. Me and you might not be talking if we ain't NIL right now.
Man.
If it's that 5-star guy, what I would say is, the takeaway that I would say is, you want to make that immediate impact. You want to be in a position group that competes, but you want to leave yourself as marketable as possible. Because right now with social media, with all that stuff like that, you can do so much more outside of the game if you're branding yourself, if you're taking advantage of all the opportunities that are presented for you. So I would always say, hey, man, keep your head down, but don't keep it all the way down. Keep your head down, work, make plays, and maximize the time that you have, because that time gets taken away real quick.
That's true. When that door shuts in this football thing, it does shut. So you talked about a little bit, man, NIL. That's kind of the new in the college landscape now that guys are dealing with. What are your thoughts on NIL, being one of the few players that probably would have gotten money coming out when we were coming out of high school? Hear your thoughts on that.
To be honest, I think that it was needed. I also got a different thought that right now it needs to be some type of regulations on it. And what I say that is that, one, we're not, at 17, 18, sometimes you're not financially responsible. Sometimes coming from where no matter, some backgrounds, your family might not be financially responsible. But I think that there should be some regulations where, to be honest, like it should be for everybody, it should be almost like a cap that you could hit every year. And then, if you graduate, well, I always say if you graduate is because NFL it worked for me, but it didn't work out for me. My degree holds so much value. You know what I mean? So if you graduate, I will release all the money that they've made, because, that paper means so much more if this stuff doesn't work out. You know what I mean? So I think that it was needed, but I think it needs to be more of a regulation of if you graduate. And I think some of these programs can kind of like tie it around that. Like, hey, look, man, hey, we give you $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year. That's a lot of money, bro. We had hundreds, not thousands. We had, $110 a month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I would just kind of that's kind of my thoughts on the NIL. I think it's helping these kids somewhat. I think it's kind of hurting the game a little bit too, because if you look at these coaching staffs, and something that was like installed with us was like, it wasn't fear, but it was like, bro, if I mess up, like, I know I'm gonna run, I know I'm whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe give me that paper. I might have been like, man, hey, y'all can say what y'all want. I got this bag, bro.
I got this bag.
I got this bag, bro.
Yeah.
So y'all can do it. Like, it's kind of sometimes harder coaching, and laying down that like ultimate focus with kids making these tons of money that they're making here. But it's got to be a special guy. He got to produce.
And that's the key piece, man. We talk about the top percent of guys that are getting paid. The one thing that I always trying to caution guys is not going in and kind of having their eyes wide open on the cash when it's a small few group of guys that have to, like, that take advantage of it. And like the real cheese is like making that dual lane branding, making plays on the field and like cleaning your stuff off the field so they kind of converge at a tipping point, but not being so focused off the field to get money where you ain't worrying about your game on the field. You got a lot of guys coming up in high school now kind of losing focus on that. So that's a big piece of just giving those guys support, because you've mentioned this is the guy that's been the number one player in the country, went to the NFL and all those different things, and understands the different pitfalls and lack of support that kind of comes with the different expectations that these things come with, right? Yeah. So if you were going through the NIL process, like, how would you, coming out of high school, how would you have handled the process? Say we're going into Penn State, how would you have handled your NIL situation?
I would have saw if the school matched up with the brand that I was trying to create. I also would have tried to figure out too, what type of deals that kids were already getting, see what I can kind of, capitalize on. And then I would have tried to figure out, to be honest, someone in the weight room, someone in the coaching staff that I can count on that, hey, bro, at 7 o'clock at night when everybody sleep, or 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night when everybody sleep, I need you to work me out, because I want to keep this money coming. Because if you don't produce, bro, like, that money going to be taken away from you. Some of these dudes, they might be signing deals, but you know what I mean? It's things that they got to meet up to get that money. So you got to be able to, produce on that field. But I definitely would have looked at my brand, what I'm trying to create, and if the school matched up with that.
That's true, because you're entering like these mega ecosystems that you can, when you build a brand the right way, become a legacy asset within that brand, right? We see it at different schools, whether it's like Penn State with linebacker U, like that's going to live forever amongst players that, just whatever. But if you have your own personal brand, there's brands of players at Penn State or USC, Ohio State that live on forever. So like capitalizing on all those situations, that's important, man. So we talk about transitioning into the NFL. Obviously, all right, the college thing's over and now it's getting serious. It's like, all right, NIL's here. I mean, NIL's here now, but like that's like the first step before real business, how we came out. So how was the agency selection process for you? Because that's like the first thing that you're kind of a professional player. Now you got to pick an agent.
But I let my dad and my little circle kind of handle that. We felt comfortable with Shafi. I met him early in Penn State. He was a former Penn Stater. We felt like he was going to hustle for us. He's probably one of the best agents that's out there. He did a great job with my experience. And just someone that always stayed in tune and touch with the family. We wanted that to be another member of the circle that represented you outside of and understood your brand. And I think Shafi, he was all that, man. It'll be times when, when I was in the lead and stuff like that, he'll just check on me. He'll make sure I needed everything that that I would need. He would always give it to me in the training process, preparing for the draft and everything like that. He was always there. Now, in some things I ain't listened to him with, like he told me don't run at the combine after I had the flu, and I was like, man, forget that, bro. And I should have probably listened to him then, but it was somebody that I definitely trusted.
And so would you say that was your main critical factor when picking an agency was who you could trust?
Yeah, who you can trust, who you comfortable with, who, again, like it was almost like picking a school, like, and especially like a school with NIL. Like you want somebody to represent your brand out there and understand you as a person, understand your work ethic, understand what you're good at, and understand somebody that's going to hustle for you too. And I think Shafi has been all that. That's why he's been so successful now.
Absolutely. He's been very successful. And so, like, when you talk about that critical point when you're picking an agent and the next thing you go is into the pre-draft process where the agent is invested into you, get your body right, and making that transition to the NFL. See a lot of players, sometimes they go places and they kind of fall into pitfalls. You might get into a wrong city, and they kind of trick the dope off before they get to their next spot. How was your pre-draft process, one, and what are some pitfalls that players can fall into that they need to stay clear of during that incubation period?
I think the biggest one is you're thinking you already made it. You haven't made it yet, bro. It's still, that first year is probably the longest year of your life with training, with, the season, with off season, with just everything that's going on with it. It's the most important time of your life right there, and the longest period of your life. But, like I said, with Shafi, he kind of just gave me the look of just everything that was going on there.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything different you would do during your pre-draft process?
You know what? At first I started off, I'm not even going to say their name. At first I started off at one facility, but it was a facility that everybody went to, that it was like, oh, this is the spot that you go to. And then Shafi realized that might have not been for me, and he honed it in on just one particular area. And he was like, we went to a smaller guy, and that's why I said it meant so much to be with Shafi, because he knew me as a player, and he was like, you'll be better at this place here, and not just sending you to the popular place.
That's big, having that critical point, because everybody's path is different, and it's an individualized thing. Sometimes we fall into that trap in football where it's like team-oriented, everything's team, and you got to kind of fall into the line of whether it's a group of people in an agency, a group of people in training, or a group of people here, when it's like, no, Derrick's plan of attack needs to be like this. And so having somebody have your back on that is incredibly important. How was your draft day?
It was cool. We thought that call was going to be earlier, and then we saw a trade come up that in the second round. So that kind of got me worried. But all in all, it was a good experience, to do that with my family and everything like that. It was big, I was the first one really to get drafted now. So it felt like, all the work was something that, it went and you accomplished it. But to come in it, that's when it just begins, to be totally honest, you know what I mean? So you have that brief moment, and then you need to put your head down and get it going.
Yeah, 100%. I asked about the draft day because I know for me, my draft day, I was kind of mad. Same thing. I was like, man, I got drafted in the fourth round and I slid, I left. And I literally don't really remember because I was so angry from the day. So when draft day, that's the one I kicked myself. Man, you got to celebrate those moments regardless of when it is, right? Because football, like you said, it's over before you know it. Yep. Once you get to Detroit, what was your welcome to the NFL moment?
You remember earlier I was talking about my number one thing was when we did gases and stuff like that. We were coming first, bro. I look over and I saw Calvin Johnson, and I'm out there running, bro. This Bama gliding, and he's like way in front of me. And I'm like, I look at my legs. And I don't know if you ever looked at your feet run. And I'm like, why aren't you running faster? And I was like, oh, this is the truth right here. And then we go in the weight room, and then we got the vertical jump test, and he cleared everything, and they had to move that joint up again. I was like, oh God.
So just seeing the other, like when you walked into, like obviously Megatron's a freak in nature, so like that was your welcome to the NFL moment. It was like, oh, there's creatures out here that it doesn't really matter, like what I do.
Yep.
He said, "Yep, that was it."
It didn't matter. And to be honest, you know what I mean? Here's the thing, like one thing that I always had in my mind was that I was better than everybody as far as like just out. That was like that was my superpower. I was like, yo, I'm just the best, like no matter what. You might not be the best, you might not be the fastest, you might not be the strongest, but the confidence I had, it was like, bro, I'm the best when I step on this field. I think that I lost that, and I didn't lose it to like a DB. I lost that joint to Calvin Johnson. He might have been like the best. Like I was like, bro, I'm not better than him. And once I said that in my mind, my career was over.
Wow. Once you said, so when I run it back, so you said once you kind of said that in your mind, it was like your whole system was shook. Because like everything you've been self-talk, everything was like, I'm the best. The first time you said, I'm not better than him, it shocked everything else.
Shocked everything, bro. And then my eyes looked at somebody and kind of like he's a Hall of Famer. And I was like, bro, this is the best dude out there. And really for me, and to be honest, if you look at the greats, like, yeah, you play with great people, but bro, you still got that hunger in you. You're like, I'm the best out there. Bro, it's nothing that's different about it. I look at basketball, it's nothing that's different. Like LeBron James, bro, he doesn't jump the highs, he doesn't do all this other stuff like that, but his mentality is that he's the best, and that's what's got him there. He's always had it there. That's why I say mental strength is like mental health and understanding your mind and understanding what you need to do. That propels you everywhere. Your mind is so strong and it can take you so many places. But once I saw that and once I said that, like I was done, bro. Like the plays that I used to make, I couldn't make them anymore because I was like, bro, like I'll run routes. And usually when I'm out there, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm giving it to him. I should get the ball. I was like, I'll go out that joint and be like, oh, they throwing that joint to CJ. So I would get ready to jump on his back and say, good job, man. Like, once you start feeling that way, bro, it was over.
Man, that was your edge. That was your edge. Like that was your special sauce. That's powerful stuff. I mean, that's interesting to hear. I never heard that dynamic before.
I tell my son this here. I say, look, we work right now because one day you're gonna meet the beast, right? One day you're gonna meet the beast. The beast can come now. The beast can come. In college, the beast can come. In the NFL, the beast is going to come and you're going to meet him. How are you going to react, right? I said, hey, my beast was in my room, and that was CJ. And he didn't miss anything. He did everything on time. Everything that I thought I was good at, he did it better. And the competition level as far as, like, the competitive in me was like, man, he's better than me at this and this and this and this. Like, I didn't fight. And what I needed to do was fight and still be a teammate, but fight. Like, bro, like, I'm still like, hey, he do it, shit, I'm going to do it better. He that fast, I'm going to get faster. Like, every time you got to start thinking like that. And I tell my son that too. I'll be like, yo, bro, like, you going to meet that beast right now. You might be killing right now, but, hey, it's a dude that might be come from Jamaica, Tawana, or somewhere like that. He going to come out. He going to show you a little butt up. And what you going to do?
That's a gem in itself, like a diamond gem, because like that just sets your whole perspective on like what you're preparing against. I know when I was growing up, my dad would be like, look, man, it was always percents, like top 1% here. You can worry about this league. You can worry about the state. Don't worry about the state. Don't worry about the city. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about the East Coast. You need to be worried about the whole country. So like that aspect of like, there's always somebody else and not even seeing stuff in front of you. And then like you kind of get to that group of people and like what it looks like. And you're like, coming to high school, you get to that group that everyone talks about, and you start gaining confidence. Like, oh, I'm killing these dudes. Or I'm good. I'm better than this. But you say you got to the NFL, and it's like, oh man, I don't know. I can't lie to myself.
I can't lie to myself right now, bro. I'll be thinking like, if I was Matt, I'll be throwing it over there too, bro. Like, dang. It was sometimes, bro, Matt would throw me the ball. I wouldn't even be looking because I knew he was trying to throw it over. I knew he was throwing it over there. So I was like, hey, bro, I'm just going to run this cut 5 over here. And, like, I'm going to run it just to say I ran it. But the ball ain't coming to me. It's going to CJ. And so I stopped being ready.
Right. So what would you tell a college player getting ready to make that jump into the NFL? Because, like,
bro, have that mentality. You're the best. You're going to kill it. Compete every single day, no matter who it is. If you go there with, if you go to Kansas City, bro, and you out there with Cheetah, bro, like, Cheetah good, but I gotta be a faster Cheetah. I gotta want that ball. I gotta make my plays. I gotta do all that stuff, bro. Like, I need that ball. When we were coming up, you think about like Mike Wallace and AB. They called it the Bugatti boys. Them boys were out there competing, no matter who it was. AB, Marion Sanders. Them boys was out there hungry. They ain't care about Hines Ward or nothing like that. He was good. They respected him, but they was like, bro, we the Bugatti boys. We coming.
I tell guys all the time when you get to we talking about the NFL piece, man. It's like literally being in open water with a whole bunch of great white sharks. Like that's the easiest way to explain it. You better be ready to eat like every day. That dog mentality.
You gotta be hungry, bro.
People playing for mortgages, man.
That's it. At that draft, like that's the beginning of that hunger, that thirst. Like you got to be ready to go out there and eat, man.
That's it, guys. Making that jump to the NFL, guys. Get ready pre-draft, man. Remember, you change your mentality. You're going to go take food off another man's plate at the end of the day, and cats come to practice with that mentality and ready to get it. Take a quick break. We're going to have an LIG read here. 1 second. This episode is brought to you by LIG Sports Group, a football operations strategy group, and this is Blue Chip Academy's Blueprints of Success, a recruiting NIL player development support program. The college landscape has vastly shifted with the transfer portal, NIL, and other changing dynamics. Without proper guidance, many athletes will fail to maximize their full potential. LIG's Blue Chip Academy provides recruiting, NIL, and player development advising for families and athletes so they can make the best decision at the critical points in their career, setting themselves up for success both on and off the field. They will receive personal football operation, player development, and recruiting advisory services, a full head coach evaluation on their strengths, weaknesses, and offseason plan, along with 2 recruiting calls a month and 1 45-minute lesson in the business of football and the recruiting process. All right, man. So we're getting into the critical insights and specific knowledge during the transition. So football is here, all that good stuff. How was the transition from the game for you?
I mean, it was tough. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because you think about that plan A that you always had, not having a plan B. Bro, I was looking at, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. And, I didn't have time to wait. Like, I had things that I needed to meet. I had a family. I had, kids. And I couldn't wait for, years to still try to get in the NFL or try to get back. Like, that percentage was way down. So I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. I needed to figure out what made money. I tell people all the time right now, one thing that we don't do well in the African-American culture is show kids different ways to make money, what jobs out there make money. Because we always think about, like, in our culture, that we always think about, in any culture, think about sports, we think about entertainment, but it's people out here that are working and you can make a good living and sometimes live better than what, you're living in the NFL if you really can put your head down and go. And I don't think I had a good vision of that. So I had to figure that out with, being depressed of not playing and stuff like that.
Right. That's interesting. It's almost a gift and a curse when you said you were shifted and like kind of propelled into the transition where you couldn't play around in that rigor mortis period where you're like, oh, I'm trying to go work out. I'm trying to get back into the league, where a lot of guys kind of fall, like, get that 2 years of chasing it and then put themselves behind the 8 ball. You kind of were forced into it. But sometimes when you're forced into it, you're like in a new career or a new thing and you're like halfway there and halfway out of it. What were some of your first jobs and how did you get those roles?
The first one I worked with this company, Blair Companies, and and that was out by State College in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Just to interrupt, was
Honestly,
any college connections helped you land that job?
oh yeah, most definitely. Every job that I've getting started, every job that I had was all through college connections, all through ex teammates, um, all through just networking at school. The little networking I did, if it was more, who's telling what my career would be right now. But it was a connection that I had at school, and I knew that I wanted to get in sales. And to be honest, the only reason why I knew I wanted to get in sales because I went to a Penn State game one time, and I was looking at some of my teammates, and they pull up in RVs, and I was like, bro, they look like they getting it right now. I was like, what y'all do? They was like, we're in medical sales, we're in this, and I was like, I need to be in that. So they was like, hey, do you have any sales experience? I said, bro, I've been selling myself my entire life. You know what I mean? That's what I do. And they was like, all right, well, we'll try to get you in. They was like, what are you doing now? And I was like, right now I'm waiting for y'all to call me. Like I'm waiting on y'all. So I just had to get my foot in the door in some type of sales experience. And just the connections put me with this company called Blair Companies in the State College area.
That's crazy. Man, you mentioned that you told them that you wanted to get into sales. Like when you were playing, I mean, once you got done, was that the first instinct where you said that you wanted to get into sales when you saw those guys with the RVs?
Yeah, to be honest. I didn't know that medical sales or anything like that existed. You know what I mean? I was so laser focused on football, and then you can think about the jobs that people would say, oh, I can be a doctor, I can do this, a firefighter, like just typical jobs. Sometimes when I even ask kids now, like, what do you want to do after football, or be like a enroll, and they would be like, hey, I want to be a doctor. And I'm like, what type of doctor? Right. And they don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? So kind of do your research on it's, different areas, different specialties that you can do as far as like, being in that professional field there. And I didn't know it, but I wish I would have known, some of the different things that were out there, especially that can make, great money.
That's incredible. Yes, and that's incredibly true because like even when he's bringing Myron Roll, I remember being in a camp in high school with him and like this question came up like, what do you want to do? And he had said something crazy like he's doing now, like a surgeon or something. I was like, surgeon? Like, he's doing this for the reporters. Because, the reporters was new at the time. And he was telling the truth. This man was a Rhodes Scholar and did the whole thing. Now he's a brain surgeon, right?
He's a neurosurgeon.
Neurosurgeon, yeah. So,
but now you got to think too. If that was NIL, he was creating that brand for him all the way from the beginning.
Strong.
He was saying that, and he did it. Right now, outside of what he's doing in neurosurgeon, his brand is so strong. He's on the NFL Network. He's doing all these conferences and stuff like that. But that's just him having a vision from this is what football is going to do for me. And after that, man, I got my whole life to live.
That's 100% correct, man. The fact that you brought him up as an example, and he lived it out. You get into medical sales, and obviously there's a transition. You're a football player. Take me through a little bit of that steps to like get acclimated into being a medical sales professional from being a football player. What were some of the hurdles that you had to jump over?
You know what? The good thing about sales is that athletes usually do really good because you're competing, right? You got numbers that you're competing every day. You got people around the country that, that might be on your team that you're trying to win President Club. You're trying to be recognized in the company as, one of the best ones that are there. So I took some of those like challenges. I took some of those like things that I kind of related to each other. And I was like, you know what, this is just like sports. Like, I'm going to attack it the same way. I'm going to attack it where, I got to be knowledgeable about my products. I got to understand and study these things. I got to, show up for meetings and be the first one there, never show up late for meetings, and just be responsible and reliable. And then after that, just start relating more to people. That's all sales is. Sales is never like you out there and you're spitting your knowledge and everything like that. Sales is people want to be around you. You know what I mean? And they understand that if anything goes down, that they can rely on you to give them what they need. And I started relating all that stuff back to the lessons I learned in sports, man, and just tied it all together.
That's big, especially when we talk about getting back to the core of it, right? Like, all right, what do I do? What do I know? All right, I'm gonna outwork people. I got this goal to make. I'm gonna show up early for the different things, whether that's how we had to operate in school and all that good stuff. Was there a moment when you were in like doing everything where you felt like, all right, you found your stride in the transition, and now you felt comfortable reverting back to all your instincts, where it's like, all right, I look at a sales guy, oh, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, where your confidence kind of kicked back in to like,
You know what? After year like 3, I've been in medical sales for about 9 years now. After year 3, and
year three.
president, I won President's Club. I was like, you know what? That was one of the biggest accomplishments ever because it was going to a space where I knew nothing about, right? And being recognized as the 5. I'm in a company with 1,000 salespeople, and the top 5 get President's Club. I'm like, bro, I just did that. Like, I don't know nothing like that. I remember, it was times when, in college, bro, like, I'll be like, yo, I'm gonna go in there and I'm just gonna work, and that's just what, like it was something like, bro, I really proved it to myself that I was, able to do something outside of football at that point in time. And I was like, all right, I can make this work. Now, what I do, it's not my love. Football is my love. I love coaching. I love helping kids out and stuff like that. But I've learned all the time, too, that your passion doesn't have to pay your bills, right? So this isn't like something that I love to do, but it's something that provides a great life for my family. But my passion is still with that pigskin, baby.
Right.
So I'll go out there and I'll help these high school kids. I'll, talk to parents, do anything like that that will fulfill that love. But my passion is that pigskin.
That's true, man. You made no great points. So it's like being able to do other things and still be able to exercise your passion and your background in football. Because, like you said, having a career outside of sports and being able to check that box. Because a lot of times we're going through. I know for me going through, I know there was always that whispering voice in my head, like, man, can I do that? Can I go to Wall Street? Can I start this? I could do more than this. So once you accomplish that, that's amazing to hear. That's like, man, I did that. Like, you go to a new space. Everybody's been kind of going to school, getting ready to be whatever it sells. You jump in and find your stride. That's awesome.
I think anything, bro, as far as athletes, and especially in the sales space, like, you got it. Like, you've been taught it. The only thing that's the knock is that, once you get done, you don't have somebody creating your schedule anymore, right? All our lives, as far as an athlete, you got your schedule. You understand, like, hey, 6:30, I got to be, to training because we got our running days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. After that, I go to breakfast. After that, 7:30 to 2 o'clock, I got class. Then I come back and I got film room. Like, your schedule is given to you. Once you get done, you got to be able to create that schedule. And that's a tough task sometimes, you know what I mean? When everybody's then told you where to go, how to move, and all that stuff like that, it's a tough task to start understanding that, hey, this is the schedule that I need to be on. And the best ones, what they'll do is start relating that to what they were used to, and then start, like, picking that off. Like, all right, look, I'm going to work out at 6:30, but I got to work out on my own. I need to eat breakfast. And then now I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to start understanding my products. And this is like my classroom stage right now. This is when I'm in class. And then I'm going to start understanding my products. And then after that, you know what I mean? If you got somebody, then you say, hey, I'm going to go around and I'm going to start role playing, start seeing, like, hey, I'm talking to Justin today. I'm going to pitch this product. And just start relating everything that you had, put it back together. That's how you be successful after it, because you're given the tools being in sports. You're given the tools to be competitive. You're getting the tools to be responsible. You're getting the tools to be reliable. You're given all those tools. You just got to put it all together.
Man, this is a book, man. That's 100% right. So what's the ideal personality or type player that would lend well following your post-career?
I don't think it's an ideal personality. The trait that I've always looked for is that I think that's just like the one thing you got is that you're a winner. You know what I mean? And usually if you're in that sports atmosphere, all you want to do is win. You don't get in it to lose. You know what I mean? So that trait is already given to you because you're a competitor and you want to win. Personalities and stuff like that, everybody has a different personality. But that one trait, that one thing that we fall on is that we want to win. You know what I mean? And that's the relatable trait that's all through sports.
100%. 100% correct. So for players, if players coming to the end of their career and they want to get into the healthcare industry, whether it's ortho sales or medical device divisions, any advice or steps that it can take to help find that first opportunity? Like what should a player do?
You know what, NFL guys, the NFLPA and all of they do a great job of connecting with the medical field as far as like a transition stage. We have a ton of the ex-NFL players that are in the medical space. One, because, again, you have all the traits to do well in sales. You're a competitor and all that stuff like that. Sometimes you're relatable, too, with some of the injuries you might have had in some of the ortho positions. With the NFL, I would think a big thing would be connecting with the NFLPA, start creating resumes, start understanding that, like, hey, if you got foundations and if you got, if you've been a part of like Play 360, all this stuff can go on your resume as, you're kind of selling yourself and you're doing work. Just kind of like trying to relate all that stuff together. And it's people out there that help put together a resume for you when you don't even think you have sales experience, but you do. So I would think with the NFL trying to connect with, the NFLPA. Sometimes in the summer, in the off season, I would also try to do like a shadow intern a little bit when you have time, because the medical field is not going anywhere. For college guys, I would kind of look at the alumni, start reaching out to some of those guys, creating those LinkedIn pages, start connecting the dots there, telling them like, hey, I'm reaching out because my career is about to come to an end. Start doing that maybe your junior year, and like start putting yourself out there for like help from some of the ex-alumni, because it's a lot of them that's in there. I guarantee with this football thing, I guarantee that it's on your team. You have on the team, or people that have played football are in the field of medical sales, medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales. And if you put yourself out there and understand how to get in touch with them from like job fairs, from anything like that, like it can help you take that step to getting into that career path.
That's key, man. Derrick's one of the people that I called when I was transitioning out, and he was in medical sales, and I was like, man, how do you like it? What should I do to how to get into it? And I actually took his advice and gave my first job at a physical therapy spot where I was dealing with injuries and being able to make that transition and help learn the market and sales, all those things. So he kind of gave that advice to me when I was transitioning out and helped catapult and bring these different skills to be able to get to the point where I'm at now, even transitioning back into football. So, man, you've done so much in your life so far. What's your career end goal?
Like I told you before, my purpose is that pigskin. I love it. You know what I mean? I love giving back to the community. I got kids now, man. Kids. So my thing is that I want to pass the torch. You know what I mean? I think our parents did a great job of passing the torch. And I think that that's our end goal. As once you start creating your own family, the end goal is to pass the torch to your kids. And that's what I want to do. Things that I didn't know, I want to make them aware of. Things that I didn't know, I want to make my community aware of. But my end goal is to be able to pass the torch there and get somebody to do it way better than I've done it. And, that's when I'll be happy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. That's some strong stuff there, man. So, Derrick, that was our last question, man. Thank you so much for joining us on the Blueprint to Success, man. Just to recap a little bit what he said, man, going into this whole process, having a real blueprint and having a focus, you know what I'm saying, and understanding that Derrick even operates and look back in the rear view and just seeing that, keeping his eyes and vision open while he's going through his college process and looking at some of the different things outside of the sports that he could have helped maybe accelerate his path or the transition or different things that he may have done, but also been able to pivot and make great strides in his career, transition into orthopedic sales after having a very successful football career from high school all the way into the NFL, and finding their stride in the medical sales field and just giving those blueprints and steps for the next coming athletes and continue to build and give back to the next group of people in sports, whether it's our kids, our next generation, and passing down the things that we kind of learn and having a unique look at this whole football ecosystem, man. So you guys like, subscribe to this video, and make sure you take a chance to download the checklist, the Blue Chip Academy's checklist, so you guys are making informed decisions going through the recruiting process, and join LIG's Blue Chip Academy Facebook group. And Derrick, man, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
No
Thank
doubt.
you. You're doing some good stuff over there, bro. Keep texting me that and telling me that you're doing some good stuff. You're dropping the knowledge for these kids, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Man, thank you so much, man. And now it'll be it, man. Life is good.
All right, man.